All right, now that we have an idea of where we're going, let's talk about how we're going to get there. So first, we're going to import data from Google Analytics and Webflow into Parabola. Then we're going to merge them together and then export. So visually, this looks like this. This is the import Google Analytics section, import Webflow, merge them together, and then export. So first, let's work on importing Google Analytics data into Parabola. So every block here comes from here on the right. You can go Google Analytics and then drag that in, but I've already done that. So let's go ahead and look at each step. So first, Google Analytics. What we want is to first connect our data, and then what type of data do we want to import? So I'm going to look at page tracking. That is this information right here. But if you have an e-commerce website or something like that, you can look at conversions or sales. So I'm pulling in page views and page path. And the reason I'm pulling in page path is that is where my CMS information is. So everything that starts with Essential Guide to Airtable, those are my classes that are on my website. But in this case, in your case, it could be blog or something like that. And then we have page views here. And then once we've imported our Google Analytics data, let's go ahead and import Webflow. This is a little bit different. So here we're importing an actual API call. So we're going into api.webflow.com/collections and then /my collection ID and then items. So if you want to know what your collection ID is, you can just go to a page where, or your template page. Here we go. And your CMS ID will be this value right here. So you can plug that into the API call, and then /items will give you a list or grid of every item that's in your CMS, including every single field. So we have page views here, which is what we want to update with the Google Analytics data. So with that, so now that we have our data from Google Analytics and Webflow in Parabola, we need to find a way to merge them together. So we need to find a key or something in common to which merge these two tables together. So what we're going to use is this little path after the CMS URL. And we're going to match that with the slug, which is created for each CMS item. But they're not quite similar. What we need to do is remove this Essential Guide to Airtable section. We're going to do that with a row filter. And then we're just going to replace the Essential Guide to Airtable with nothing right here. And that creates the equivalent of the slug. So this creates a key between my Google Analytics data and my Webflow data that I can then join them together. So we've created a key, and then merging the data together is just using the join functionality. So I say join on left, create my key on the Webflow data slug, and then find Google, the path, which I've edited to match the slug exactly. And so once we run that, we have page views, which is added to our table. So this is data directly from Google Analytics being added into my Webflow table. Now that we have our data formatted like we needed, we want to go ahead and update the page views field in the Webflow CMS. And how we're going to do that is with an API export. What this does is that it goes through each row in your table and does an API call with data coming from the table. So we are going to go ahead and do a patch live collection item API call, which is a fancy way to say update a CMS item. And it's a patch call, and here's the URL for that call. So we need our collection ID, which we have from step 1, and then item ID, which we also have in our table. So what that looks like is patch, we add our CMS ID /items, and then underscore ID comes from our table. So if I look at, this is the ID that each item in our CMS has, and right here. So it's going to take the value from this table, put it into the API call, and then the body, which is telling Webflow, well, which fields do we want to update? The field we want to update is page views 2. I have a 2 here because it's the second time I'm doing this tutorial. And then we want to input as a variable the column, the page views itself. So anything in curly bracket means that it's coming from the table. So we're going to update this right here. And then if we run that, it's going to go ahead and update our data, our page view field in Webflow. So that's what I wanted to show you. Hope this is useful. Let me know if it is. Thanks. Cheers.